Good afternoon to you all. Continuing our discussion, today we have a different concept which is currently a topic of discussion too. That is the development and usage of vaccines. As per the course, the discussion is limited to only the DNA type of vaccines. But I thought I'll brief you the fundamental concepts of vaccines, and then we'll try to understand what are the DNA vaccines. So the terminology vaccine is not new to biological sciences students, and nowadays this term vaccine is known by each and every individual because of the current situations. But how many of us really understand what are the vaccines and what are the development stages and how the vaccines are approved for usage? So these are some of the scientific concepts that needs to be given attention so that you understand in a better way. I believe most of you might have studied about vaccines at your undergraduate level. For them, this will be a supplementation so that they can memorize what they have studied. We all know that vaccine development and the usage of the vaccines has contributed significantly in reducing the number of infections and diseases. And this is made possible with the improved knowledge of immune system or the immune protection and greater advancement in the field of genetic engineering, so that it has provided a lot of tools to manipulate the DNA, RNA, proteins, and even the sugars. Now the situations are like we are capable enough to create attenuated mutants, and we can express potential antigens in some of the live vectors, and we have the technology to purify as well as direct synthesis of antigens, and all these advancements have contributed immensely for the vaccine technology. So now what we can understand is both the infectious as well as non-infectious diseases are within the realm of the vaccine technology. So there is a continuous development of new vaccines, and the profusion of these new vaccines, it has enabled the targeting of new population for vaccination drives as well as the cure and removal of the infectious agents from the natural system. In spite of this, still, if you can recollect, infectious diseases like malaria, HIV, still we do not have a potent vaccine. A potent vaccine for such diseases is elusive. Still, it is a big challenge to the scientific world. And now you can see what the challenge is in front of the scientific world. Every fortnight you are seeing or observing there is drastic refinement or the drastic development that is happening in the vaccines for the current pandemic situations. Right? So, from immunology point of view, the immune system is a remarkably versatile defense system that the nature has given, and through the process of evolution it is protecting the animals from invading pathogenic microorganisms. So it is able to generate an enormous variety of cells and molecules which are capable of specifically recognizing and eliminating any unlimited variety of the foreign agents or the invaders. Right. So these cells as well as the molecules, they act together in a dynamic network to protect the host or to defend the host. So immune recognition is a remarkable for its specificity. So whenever we try to understand about the immune system, the remarkable feature is the specificity. So the immune system is capable enough to recognize the subtle chemical differences, very minute chemical differences that distinguish the one from the foreign pathogen with the others. So it is capable enough to discriminate between foreign molecules and the body's own cells and proteins. Right? So that is the specificity the immune system has. Just for statistics purpose, infectious disease, they contribute to more than 45% of the total deaths in the developing countries. This is as per the WHO data. And the vaccination is the most effective means of preventing infectious disease. There is no other alternate to vaccination. And the same WHO data shows that the mortality of more than 15 million children across the globe is due to infectious disease. So this is really a big challenge to the developing nations. So vaccination is the most effective strategy to prevent infectious disease. And mass immunization drives or programs could save people from dying and children's from dying. And now you can understand that based on the present situations, mass immunization programs, whenever it is implemented, it largely depends on the availability, the cost, and the efficacy. Most of you are aware what is the stock that is available about regarding the COVID vaccines. So that is important criteria, availability. Number two, cost. We know that we have the free vaccine drives, paid vaccine drives. Cost is very, very important. Cost is involved in that. And efficacy. There are so many vaccines for the COVID. We really don't know which vaccine is truly more efficacious against the COVID. So the availability, the cost, and efficacy. So all these three factors contribute to the success of any mass immunization drives or programs. Right? And there are many issues associated with the production of vaccines. If you just carefully look at the figure, you will see the stability, the effectiveness of the vaccines after single dose, immunity, long-lived immunity against the infection, humoral cell-mediated responses compatible with local management practices, whether it is really compatible with the local system, safety, cost, as I said, and efficacy, as I said. So these are some of the properties of a vaccine that has to be looked into when we consider the mass immunization programs. Vaccines, they work by making our immune system to recognize and remember, or they teach our immune system to recognize and remember the foreign pathogenic bacteria or the virus. So it tells your immune system to remember, recognize and remember the foreign pathogenic bacteria or viruses. So after vaccination, what happens? Our immune system stores the antigen specific memory cells, and if in the future, if there is any recurrence of the exposure to the actual disease, our immune system then opsonizes the bacteria or viruses much more quickly. That is why the immunization is so important. And we know that vaccines are made by manipulating the germs or parts of the germ, that is, be it bacteria or viruses. The development of vaccinations against any harmful pathogenic microorganisms, it represents an important advancement in the history of the modern medicine. So in the past, that is the traditional vaccination, it has relied on two specific types of microbiological preparations. The two categories involve, number one, live infectious material that has been manufactured in a weaker state and therefore inhibits the vaccines from causing the disease. And number two, inert or inactivated or subunit preparations. So these are the two categories wherein the traditional vaccinations has relied for preparations to produce material for immunization and generation of a protective immune response. That is number one, living infectious material that has been manufactured in a weaker state and therefore inhibits the vaccine from causing the disease. Number two, inert or inactivated or subunit preparations. Right. And there are many approaches to design vaccines against the pathogen. And these choices are based on some of the key information about the pathogen. Say for example, how it infects the host cells, and after infection, how does the immune system of the host cells respond to the pathogen. And in addition, there are some practical considerations such as the regions of the world, the habitat where the vaccine would be used. So these points are considered when designing vaccines against any pathogenic organisms. And there are some of the types or options that the researchers or the labs look for developing the vaccines. They are number one, live attenuated vaccines. Number two, inactivated vaccines. Number three, subunit vaccines. Number four, toxoid vaccines. Number five, conjugate vaccines. And nowadays, we have the DNA vaccines and the recombinant vector vaccines. Right. And our discussion will be focused on only the DNA vaccines, because your course is, or it speaks about only DNA vaccines. So just to make you understand what are these different types of vaccines and what are the categories of the COVID vaccines that are present in the market, to which of these categories the vaccines, the COVID vaccines fall into. So we know that there are three main approaches to design a vaccine, and their differences between the three main approaches lie in whether they use a whole virus or maybe a bacterium in other cases, or just the parts of the virus or bacterium that trigger the immune system, or just the genetic material that provides the instructions for making specific proteins and not the whole virus. So there are three approaches. Their differences, or the differences between these three approaches, lie in the fact that whether they are using the whole virus or just part of the virus that trigger the immune system, or just the genetic material that provides the instructions for making specific proteins. Right. If you just consider the whole pathogen approach or whole microbe approach. We have the inactivated vaccine, then the live attenuated vaccine, and the viral vector vaccine. In case of inactivated vaccine, the first way to make a vaccine is to take the disease carrying virus or the bacterium and inactivate or kill it using chemicals, if not heat or radiations. And this is a very classical approach that has been proven to work efficiently in people. So this is the way the flu vaccine, the polio vaccines are made. And it is easy to scale up in the process of manufacturing of the vaccines. But it requires special laboratory facilities to grow the virus or the bacterium safely and have a relatively long production time, and will likely require 2 or 3 doses to be administered to be effective against the recurrence of the disease or the infection. And in case of live attenuated vaccine, a live attenuated vaccine uses a living but weakened version of the virus or the bacteria. Say for example, the measles, mumps and rubella, we abbreviate it as the MMR vaccine, and the chicken pox. These are some of the examples of this type of vaccine, that is live attenuated vaccine. Now this approach uses similar technology to that of the inactivated vaccine and can be manufactured at various scales. But these vaccines sometimes they may not be suitable for people with compromised immune system. That is a limitation of such live attenuated vaccines. Next we have the viral vector vaccines. This type of vaccine uses a safe virus, let's say that means a carrier type, to deliver specific subparts. We call it as the proteins of the pathogen, so that it can trigger an immune response without causing the disease. So you use a delivery agent, that is again it is another virus which is a safe virus, and it carries the parts or the proteins of the pathogen of interest, so that it can trigger an immune response without causing the disease. So to do this, the instructions for making particular parts of the pathogen of interest are inserted into a safe virus, and then the safe virus serves as a platform or the vector to deliver the protein into the system or the body. Now this protein triggers the immune response. Say for example, the Ebola vaccine. So this is a viral vector vaccine which was developed very rapidly using this technology. Next we have the nucleic acid vaccines. So unlike vaccine approaches that uses either a weakened or dead whole microorganisms or parts of the microorganisms, a nucleic acid vaccine, it just uses a section of genetic material that provides the instructions to make specific proteins. So the DNA and RNA are the instructions our cells use to make proteins. So in our cells, DNA is first turned into mRNA, which is then used as a blueprint to make the specific proteins. So a nucleic acid vaccine delivers a specific set of instructions to our cells. So either in the form of DNA or mRNA, so that they make the specific protein that we want our immune system to recognize and respond. So the nucleic acid approach is a new way of developing vaccines. So before the COVID-19 pandemic, the nucleic acid approach for developing vaccines was not that much, or not so much of research was put in, and none had it been through the full approval process for the use in humans. There were some of the trials that were going on to treat a particular cancers, but it was not through full approvals. So because of this pandemic situations, now the research in this area, that is nucleic acid approach for developing vaccines, has progressed very fast, and some mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 are getting emergency use authorizations. That means now these can be given to people beyond using them only in case of the clinical trials. Now I'll just make you understand what are the approaches used to make the COVID vaccines that are available in the for emergency use. So we have the viral vector vaccines, inactivated or killed vaccines, and also we have the nucleic acid based vaccines. So we know that in case of viral vector vaccines, a vector is there. It works as a vehicle to transport a disease causing agent. Say for example, mosquitoes are the vectors of malaria. So this is how we understand a vector mean. So in viral vectored vaccines, what happens? A virus is used to carry the target antigen into human cells, similar to the regular function of a vector. And there are many viral vectors which have different advantages. So the most commonly or widely used system is the adenovirus vector system. So they are known to cause mild cold or asymptomatic infections in humans. Now the presently used Covishield, it uses these adenovirus vector, that is from chimpanzee. So this carries the spike protein, SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. So the chimpanzee adenovirus that has been used in humans is with the objective that it will not have any pre-existing antibodies to this adenovirus. So that is the reason why it is used. And then there are human adenovirus as well. But there is a risk here, is that the previous colds or infections in an individual may leave them with the antibodies to the human adenoviruses. That is a risk factor. Right. So to overcome some of the limitations of this, the Sputnik V, it uses two human adenoviruses, that is labeled as AD5 and AD26. So the advantage of using two human adenovirus is that to reduce any interference with the second dose. In case of Covishield, they have used the chimpanzee adenovirus, so no issues. That means the body will not have any pre-existing antibodies. So if you don't want to use the chimpanzee adenovirus, then if you want to go ahead with human adenovirus, there is a risk that the previous course or infections in an individual may leave them with the antibodies to the human adenoviruses. So in that case, the Sputnik V uses 2 human adenovirus, aiming to reduce any interference with the second dose. So the adenovirus currently being used in COVID-19 vaccines, they are non-replicating, means that the virus given in the vaccine does not multiply. Right. So I'll stop my discussion over here. We can continue our discussion in the next session and learn more about the nucleic acid approach for developing the vaccine. Thank you very much.